Hello viewers, another beautiful day. Hope your five senses work. Health and strength is good or excellent. Alright, listen to this. There's a Linux distro. It's called Anduin OS 1.3.1. It says drop this weekend. Here's how to upgrade. It says here we've been covering a little known Linux distribution here on NeoWin recently because the solely maintainer has put a decent amount of effort into it, making it look like Windows 11. Over the weekend, the latest Anduin 1.3.1 update landed, but getting the update is not as straightforward as popping open the update manager, at least not yet. Then it says, but we got on to how to upgrade your system. Here's an overview of the fixes included in this update. It says fix an issue that Nautilus may crash when clicking network. Change the text of the image during boot or grub menu from all install Anduin OS and try to install Anduin OS. Add NGB locale to the default locale list to support British English. Fix an issue that Nautilus admin/command result in the admin location are not supported error. Fix an issue that the installer doesn't follow system theme. Add GVFS background to the default apps. List of support admins. Protocol. Add lib-pam genome keyring package to avoid genome keyring asking for a password when logging. Fix FRER fonts that uses some characters to be displayed incorrectly. Adjust default fallback order for sans serif and monospace to prioritize fonts while retaining proper CJK support. And then it says Anduin Hugh, the maintainer of Anduin OS, explained in the blog post that the distro does not currently have its own software repository to deliver updates. While it's certainly have one in the future, this means that updates are being handled a bash script. He said in the future he will change things so that you can type sudo apt upgrade to upgrade your system, but for the time being you'll need to use the following command: do underscore Anduin OS underscore upgrade. And then it says to be clear, the command will only upgrade you between point release. So to get 1.3.1 you must already have installed Anduin OS 1.3 upgrades. Between major version major versions are not yet available. Okay, and that is that. Now what do we got here? And that is that. We got 21 comments. Let's see what they're talking about here in the comment section. Let's see what they're talking about here. Who is this? Who is this? Let's see here. Dusto said this. What would this do in WSL? And then Becker said this. Several Linux distros are. And then who is this? Shell said this. I love to see it listed in the Microsoft Store. Then Necro said this. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. It's simply the only reason why normal Windows users might get tricked to use Linux if Linux looks like Windows. And then who is this? Who is this? Dusto said this for he's responding to Nick. He said family members, I guess. Then Becker said, I agree. The problem with these Linux distros is that, like most, like Windows, is that it's basically just a kin and an icon set. They don't really do anything to make Linux more approachable to a Windows user. In fact, if anything, they are possibly going to cause more issues due to the fact they are less standard distro that use to a much smaller and dev team, and a less user reporting bugs is more likely to have than something like Ubuntu. And then who is this? Luckily said this. Luckily, he said the guy said he's working on that. And who else is it? Who else is this? Nick. He says, I'm not sure why anyone would want to install Linux and mask it to look like Windows, but that's to each his own. You can do it with other distribution. So having one that looks like Windows 11 out of the box, okay, cool. The repository situation seems like a bit of an issue, though. You're looking for users that want Windows 11 without using Windows 11, so asking them to use thermals of an upgrade doesn't seem like it will sit well with those people. And then Nick, he says this: always winning comments. Care to explain yourself? I could consider your point if you made one. And then without me said trash. He said yes. Kind of sucks. I use Linux for server stuff, but just avoid these nowadays. Windows with WSL dock support is good enough. I just turn to the telemetry stuff off and have a good time. I would spend far longer getting Linux set up than I would Windows, even when I factor in disabling the bloat, all the bloat. And then who is this? Necro said this: one of the biggest Linux issues is fragmented. These are several hundred distros of Linux, many of which have multiple active versions at the same time. Trying to find help with your specific version of Linux is complete nightmare. I had Linux Mint, and on a weekly basis had to use the terminal to do basic tasks. Then I ran into an issue that I couldn't find any help on that was related to Linux Mint. Since Mint was based on Ubuntu, I looked up the same issue in Ubuntu and find clear instruction. Then I typed the command into the terminal and error message those commands are not available. It says, eventually I found similar tools. I was using Linux for Windows. Mint went bye-bye. And then who was this? Becker said this: I think it really comes down to how you use a computer and what you expect from it. Here are 4 different types of users that I feel like covers most cases on which I feel like works best for them. Basic users says like slightly favorite someone who basically just set up their computer as a web browser and on occasion might work some basic local files, image or office document. I say Linux is slightly favored here because most distros include everything needed for this type of user, and the package manager does a job of keeping everything to up to date. On the Windows side, you should have to either pay $365 or manually install LibreOffice, whether other tools might need it. And then it says professional users / gamers, Windows and Mac OS favored, and then it says in parentheses, gamers are not Macs. Someone who uses their computers more than a surface level will expect to be able to install mainstream app. Yep, but doesn't have technical skills to troubleshoot Linux compatibility. They just expect everything to work. While most things this users want to do can be done in Linux, they don't want to mess with figuring out how to make it work. I use most gamers at the level because they know more about computers than the stereotypical grandma above, but expect to be able to install anything under the sun and don't want to worry about compatibility. And then it says professional users, Windows and Mac OS favorite, depending on the app. Someone who knows their way around a computer and uses professional software with a medium to high level of skills. This kind of person probably doesn't care what OS they are using, but they care that their tools of choice works as expected. This is someone who is using apps like Photoshop, AutoCAD, and Microsoft Office, a DAW at a high enough level that the open source alternative are probably not good enough. Are they not willing to invest the time to learn them? In many cases, these professional apps are their plugins either don't work at all on Linux or require some kind of hack to make them not supportive. Techie users, Linux favorite, someone who dove into the every aspect of Windows, knows it like the back of their hand, and is ready for something with more flexibility and customization. The fact that things might require more work or tinkering to get working on Linux isn't a downside. They find that exciting, meaning that some people just love to troubleshoot. Yeah, I mean, computer users are big. I would say they break down into about. They gave me about 4. I'll say probably 5. But yeah. Anyway, who is this? Let's see here. Cork said this. I will go along with with what you say, as Linux is kind of geared more towards a power user, but I have to stick with my claim that once you get it installed and show people a little bit about how to use it, they have no issue doing just that. It's mostly just a matter of learning something new, and most people hate doing that. I had many people tell me how easy it's become and say they can't believe more people don't use it. And then he says, he's responding to Mullet Man. He says, I've heard many times on an update bricks someone computer, but I've never had that happen to me or anyone else. I've installed Linux, and not that it's tremendous amount, but at least 45 to 50 different people. And who else is this? Beck said this. I found the opposite to be fair. I tend to be a little bit more of a power user than simply install and start using it, but I have consistently been surprised at how frequently I have to either use the terminal or edit config files in order to do something that Windows exposed in the GUI. Don't get me wrong, Linux is getting a lot better in that area, but its GUI is not as powerful as the GUI, as the Windows GUI. People who love Linux tend to not mind that because they are typically more technical users, but it's still a reality. Okay. And who else is this? Mullet Man said this. I have found the same until they have wanted to say use Zoom for video calls and had to install new cameras and the app, or had to update the system. Just bricks. It's good when working and all they are doing is using what is on and it's stable, but that's not always the case. And who else is this? Cork said this. I've been using Linux mainly since 2017, and I bet I can count on one hand how many times I use the terminal. I hate using the terminal, but I know it's very powerful and a useful tool. It's just not needed by everyday users, and I have found that if you install it for some and just show them the basics like updating mainly, they rather quickly learn how really simple it is to use. I mean, look, the terminal, I mean, it's a tool, you know, so if things go wrong with your computer, you know, I mean, and if you like learning things, the terminal will come in good and comes in handy. Who is this? Man, it's a line. Mullet Man said this. Linux needs to be more user friendly without giving up functionality. The command line should be there for advanced users every minute. No, for advanced users, but everything important should have a simple graphical alternative. Most people shouldn't need to touch the terminal for normal tasks. Relying on it all the time just drives new users away. Distro makers should stop focusing on hardcore users and start putting ease of use first. New users want something simple and reliable, but when they run into a problem and look to forums, they're often told to open the terminal and run some outdated command-based solution that no longer works. When they ask why things aren't easier, they get defensive answers, are told to just learn the terminal. That kind of attitude doesn't help anyone. And then he says, who is this? The goal should not be to get rid of the terminal. It should be to make sure the basic don't rely on it. If updating the system needs terminal commands, it's not user-friendly or an option for most people. You may as well just give up until the basic are at least sorted. You're reaffirming the Linux is not for me attitude if it's difficult to use and you never get that user back. So support forums should also explain things clearly. Push developers to make one GUI option instead of sticking with old methods. They need to start moderating out the toxic elite users also. If not, people will give up and go back to Windows where things just work. And then he says, Linux has a lot of potential, but the constant fighting over keeping things difficult holds it back massively. Making the terminal optional at all times. I used to be one of those just learn it guys, but after teaching kids, friends, and family how to use computers, I've changed my mind. Teaching someone how to use Linux and the terminal is not fun. When the PC works and they are just using it to open a web browser, it's fine, but as soon as something breaks or they want to do something else, you're the one getting called. Even some things as basic as updating can go badly wrong. And then he says Linux need to improve or it will stay stuck in a niche OS. Steam OS gives me some hope that heading in the right direction. On this distro, a user should be able to go about update one and done. I click start menu, one click about, and one click update. They don't need to be opening terminals and typing in a command. And what else? Yeah. And last comment here. And then Cork said this. He says the older links I was trying kept failing as I did my first try when using your download us.iso. Then I tried the torrent link, which was the first time I ever tried that. Had to figure that out, and it was quite simple. Download at most my full speed. Unfortunately, there were no drivers for the Wi-Fi card in this old gateway laptop. Almost expect that. We'll try it on new models computer tomorrow. From what I saw though, it looks pretty decent. And who else? Who else is this? Who is this? Cork said this. When going to the site to download this, it still has version 1.4.1.1.4. Though I tried this again, as it now states, change the text of the image during boot grub menu for all installed Anduinos and try to install Anduinos where it used to say simply install now, which I wasn't going to do without first. Alright, now to go back to what what's this to go back to what Becker Becker said, and then to go back to see who's this Becker, to what Becker I think it was Becker. Let's see. Okay, he talked about 4 Linux users, but then who was this? Then but then Mullet Man said and then Mullet Man. Well, I mean Becker talks about the 4 Linux the different type of Linux users, but then Mullet Man talks about Linux need to be more user friendly. Well, a computer, operating system can only get so user friendly. But a lot of people that use, I would say some people that use computers, like the basic users, and when thing is like, like user friendly, they like to act like they're computer experts. But then when things go awry now, then they get exposed, they get frustrated. They like when stuff was easy, but then when stuff get challenging, they get frustrated. Linux can only be so user friendly, but at some point, a user has to learn how to troubleshoot things. It can't just be this. Oh, I just want to be this basic user, but I'm gonna give you the impression like I know computers, but then when things go awry, I really don't know it. I'm just a basic user. So computer operating system, operating OS can only get so user friendly. You know, I mean, you have to. The terminal is good for a reason. You know, it really comes down to, do you have the patience, or do you want to learn how to troubleshoot this, or are you not that type of person who don't like to troubleshoot? You know, that's what it comes down to. So operating system can only get so user friendly, man. But it really comes down to the individual, you know, and where they stand on using a computer. You know, if they just want to be the basic user, okay, fine. Just say I'm the basic user. I like to be one and done. If things come up, I don't like to troubleshoot it. Or just be the other user that, like, okay, I like using the computer, but when problems come up, I like to try to solve them myself, and then that's it. So to me, that's what it should be. You know, when it comes to using a computer, you know, separating the one and done basic users versus the ones that are professional and knows how to troubleshoot it. You know, so you can take it from there. But other than that, man, a new operating system out for Linux. They got some work to do on it, and when it comes to these Linux distros, you know, I would say, they got some work to do on it. So more updates will be coming down the line. When it comes to these Linux distros, you know, it's best to get a whole bunch of computers. You know, get the Linux distros that works on older machines. Get a whole bunch of, get a room, and then like get a whole bunch of computers, and then install each one, and then try to see how they work, you know. So yeah, but they're pretty good to use, though. They're pretty good to use, you know, pretty good to use. I think you know, most people, when they use the operating system, you know, they want everything to stay the same. They don't like to see change within the OS, you know. So that's another issue too when it comes to these computer OS. But other than that, another distro to the Linux operating system, man. So yeah, these developers, they got some work to do, you know. So when I think as minutes, seconds, hours, days, weeks, months goes on, you know, this operating system will get better, you know. But by the looks of it, they're gonna need some more developers to really help them with this. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this video for y'all to enjoy, though. Nice talking to you people again. Crystal Star Wars Searching Thing. Dark Side. I'm gone. Peace. Oh.